Just like people lobby members of Congress in hopes of getting them to introduce certain bills or vote a certain way on pending legislation, organizations called social impact agencies lobby Hollywood writers and producers to persuade them into incorporating political propaganda into their films and television shows to push whatever agenda the people paying them want to inject into the media ecosystem. After Donald Trump won the 2016 election, Jimmy Fallon was put under pressure to make his show more political because he was too weak on Trump. He also apologized for having Donald Trump on his show shortly before the election and regretted humanizing him after viewers and the media were outraged that Fallon was too nice to him. Remember when Trump let him mess up his hair? While making regular use of Trump as a punchline, Jimmy Fallon tends to shy away from politics and focus his humor on things like skits and games with celebrities. But since the network executives wanted to use the show as their own political weapon, Fallon was forced to turn up the heat on President Trump. After NBC fired Jay Leno as the Tonight Show host and replaced him with Jimmy Fallon in 2014, rumors were rampant in the industry that Leno was forced out because he was going too hard on President Obama. He was #1 in the ratings and had been for 20 years, so people wondered why NBC would get rid of him since he was still on top. Well, Leno was the first late-night comedian to take the gloves off and really start bashing President Obama. For his entire administration, the mainstream corporate comedians treated him with kid gloves, and very few of their jokes really took him to task. But after the hope and change wore off and was replaced by regret and despair for many Americans, Jay Leno started bashing Obama like nobody else in the business.
The White House has admitted that President Obama's chief of staff had advance warning the IRS was targeting conservative groups, but never told the president. Well, President Obama says the first time he heard about the IRS scandal and the AP phone record scandal, first time he heard about it was from the media. See, that's why President Obama holds press conference, not to explain what's going on, to find out what's going on. The president didn't know about Benghazi, didn't know about the IRS scandal, didn't know about the AP scandal. You know what this means? They took don't ask, don't tell out of the Pentagon and moved it into the White House. I always love when politicians say things like this. President Obama said today he welcomes a national debate over our surveillance policy. He said it's a debate we wouldn't have had 5 years ago. 5 years ago? Debate we wouldn't have had 2 weeks ago if they all hadn't gotten caught. That's why we're having the debate. Exactly. President Obama told a group of school children that broccoli is his favorite food. You know, it's one thing to lie to the voters, okay? But, you know, when you're lying to kids, come on.
I sure do miss when comedians were funny. Jay Leno was my favorite comedian, not just because he was funny, but you couldn't tell what his politics were because he made fun of everyone. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Obama, it didn't matter. They were all fair game, but under the Biden administration, all the late night talk shows treated old Joe with kid gloves until the emperor had no clothes moment after the debate when it became clear that Joe Biden wasn't going to make it to election night. Right after Leno's final episode, Johnny Carson's former head writer, Raymond Miller, wrote an op-ed admitting the obvious, that the other late night hosts protected Obama, while Leno broke the mold, taking him to task. Sure, the other hosts joked about him, but it was all lighthearted humor and nothing like the way comedians treated previous presidents. And immediately after Jimmy Fallon replaced Jay Leno as the Tonight Show host, one of the first guests on his show the first week was Michelle Obama, who came on to promote Obamacare. Unlike Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, who took over The Late Show from David Letterman in 2015, made Trump bashing a staple of his show to the point where it's an odd obsession. But he wasn't so happy after election night back in 2016.
There's no way around it. This is what it feels like when America is made great again. I was wondering, and I was really hoping it would feel better because this sucks.
That's probably the first time Stephen Colbert has ever made me laugh. But he pulled himself together, and President Trump became his #1 enemy. Most nights, his entire monologue is about Donald Trump, and it serves more as a nightly anti-Trump editorial than stand-up comedy. And that's not even a secret at this point. In fact, one of the emails Wikileaks released from Hillary's campaign manager, John Podesta, shows that a Clinton insider was able to get Colbert to do 2 different segments to promote the Clinton Foundation on his show. And this is what Stephen Colbert's viewers think actually passes for comedy.
That's it.
Of course, he also regularly spews anti-whiteism.
And white Americans will soon be a minority, and that's great. Our only spice is potato. Learn from history. The minority has never been able to control the majority without first denying the majority's humanity.
Former comedian Jon Stewart and his elitist friends are looking forward to it as well.
We are going to be a white minority very, very soon. I'm okay with that. To me, change is opportunity. And this country has evolved via change every year of its existence since 1776. There are always going to be people who don't want change. But just look at how much has changed among the things that we thought would never change, from pot to, gay weddings to you name it. The list is long. It takes time.
Jimmy Kimmel also uses his show as part of the anti-Trump entertainment complex, but not with the level of disdain and hatred of Stephen Colbert. But he promotes the liberal agenda literally every single night and is a valuable Democrat asset. After his newborn son was found with a heart defect and had an emergency surgery, Jimmy Kimmel gave a tearful monologue telling his viewers what happened, thanking the doctors and the nurses, but then turned his emotional story into an anti-Trump rant, blasting President Trump for planning to fix Obamacare. And Kimmel is widely credited with preventing the repeal and the replacement of Obamacare because his segment sparked the media coverage that convinced Rhino Senator John McCain, who cast the deciding vote against the legislation, to vote no on the repeal. Kimmel has also admitted consulting with Chuck Schumer to get material for his show to use against Republicans, and doesn't care that becoming a Democrat propagandist has cost him half of his audience.
I don't disagree. I mean, you're right. I have lost half of my family, maybe more than that. I mean, when 10 years ago, among Republicans, I was the most popular talk show host. I mean, at least according to the research that they did. But I couldn't live with myself. I see this.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a public service. You, Colbert, the Seth Meyers, these are the guys. You're the guys who make us feel like we're not alone.
Of course he doesn't care. It's not about the money or ratings. It's about the message. And when he first started his show 20 years ago now, Kimmel admitted this.
Really terrible. Have you learned anything about being a TV show host?
Not really.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I will, I was here right before the show started, and I really feel like you led me astray by not telling me how much lying I would be doing.
Oh.
For instance, you lie, you tell the guests you like their movies, you lie, you tell them you like their television shows. Right. You lie, you act like you like them, and I really had no idea that I would become one of the biggest phonies in the world. I mean, really.
Hard.
Yes, that's what happens when you sell your soul to a major media conglomerate. You turn into a ventriloquist dummy, and whatever they want to come out of your mouth magically does. But after election night 2024, he wasn't so chummy.
It's more than half of this country voted for the criminal, still trying to figure out what happened. It was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency.
A comedian crying during his show because the Democrat lost. That's the state of late night comedy shows these days. Stephen Colbert's first show after election night 2024 began with a cold open, a PSA basically of him sitting at his desk and looking like he just got out of a funeral and telling his audience that despite the tragedy that occurred, he's gonna still do supposed jokes and try to make the morons who watch his show laugh. There's even a guide titled Leveraging Comedy for Social Change that was published by the Center for Media and Social Impact at American University in Washington, D.C., which notes comedy's ability to actually set a media agenda is well documented by research and in practice. The effect of one comedy piece can be magnified, infinitely increasing its ability to reach both target audiences and decision makers who are able to directly impact the issue. This is why the fake news media is always reporting on what Stephen Colbert or John Oliver say on their shows. And if you still have any doubt that comedy can be a vehicle for political propaganda, in an interview with CNN in 2008, Chevy Chase openly admitted that he used his position on Saturday Night Live back in the 70s for propaganda purposes. One of his famous skits was playing then President Ford at the time, who was facing off against Jimmy Carter in the 1976 election. And Chevy Chase admitted this.
And I just went after him. And I certainly, obviously my leanings were Democratic, and I wanted Carter in, and I wanted him out. And I figured, look, we're reaching millions of people every weekend. Why not do it?
Wait a minute. You mean to tell me that in the back of your mind you were thinking, hey, I want Carter,
oh,
this
yeah.
guy, and I'm going to make him look bad?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
What do you think they're doing now? I mean, you think they were just doing this because Sarah's funny?
He's talking about Saturday Night Live skewering Sarah Palin when she was John McCain's running mate that year, by the way.
No, I think that the show is very much more democratic and liberal oriented, that they're obviously more for Barack Obama than McCain.
Obviously, yes. Many people actually credit Tina Fey's depiction of Sarah Palin on Saturday Night Live with being largely responsible for people seeing her in a negative light, because Tina Fey highlighted her quirks and accentuated her faults so much that the caricature ended up overshadowing the real Sarah Palin in many ways and permanently tarnishing her image. Kind of like what happened with Al Gore from Saturday Night Live, who is still a laughingstock.
Rather than squander the surplus on a risky tax cut for the wealthy, I would put it in what I call a lockbox.
The same thing can be said for what I did to Brian Stelter, one of the things I'm most proud of in my career, turning him into a laughingstock. But another thing that I'm proud of are my books. I think they're way better than my YouTube videos, so if you like my more serious monologues like this, then you'll love reading my books. So order Hollywood Propaganda, How TV, Movies, and Music Shape Our Culture in paperback from Amazon.com, or download the ebook from Kindle, iBooks, Nook, or Google Play. Oh, by the way, it's also available in hardcover as well. So head on over to Amazon.com or click the link in the description below and check it out.